The rule's right here.
Hey, it's Bobby, and I'm at the shop after hours, and I'm faced with the task of bottling up a bunch of beers from kegs that are going into nearby brewing competitions or beer competitions. And I get asked pretty often at the store by customers who were looking to bottle some of their beer. If you're trying to get your kegged beer that is perfectly carbonated and tasting great into bottles that will be treated somewhat roughly, they'll be moved around quite a bit, potentially stored in undesirable conditions for the next couple of weeks before a judge finally pours that beer into a cup, you have to be extra careful about what you're doing. Beer competitions are like 80% brewing and cellaring contest and 20% bottling contests. So it doesn't matter how good your beer is in the keg when you're pulling drafts at your house. If you can't get that into the judge's glass in the same condition that you're currently enjoying it, then you have no chance. I'm going to switch my camera around into a little rig that I designed so that you can kind of see first person how I handle my bottling, and I will not leave anything out. I'll show you exactly how I do it. All right, a quick rundown of my setup, and we'll get right to the bottling process. Fresh, brand new bottles. I don't trust reused bottles for competition entries. There's just not enough reason to keep reusing when I don't need that many for competitions. You're always potentially going to make a mess. So paper towels, a dump bucket for when I'm changing over from one beer to the other. I want to just discard some of the overlap, and a pint glass for me when I'm getting close to knowing that it's the new beer in there. Also like to evaluate where the beer is at the bottling time. So maybe I'll catch a flaw that's late creeping into the beer, oxidation or contamination. I fill my bottles over a tray in case I make a mess. And then I also do the same thing with my bench capper. I use a Griffo. This is absolutely no compromises on making sure that the crimp is perfect. If you're using a less expensive bench capper or even the double wing capper, hand capper, then what you want to do is make sure that you're double or triple crimping your bottles. Just do the crimp and turn the bottle about 25 to 45 degrees or so, and just do another crimp just to take any variation of the crimping bell out of the equation. So that's just my recommendation. I've got a bucket of really cold Star San in here. I put 5 gallons of Star San in this keg and left it in the fridge overnight, and then dispensed about 4 gallons into the bucket, and also threw an extra ice pack in there just to keep it cold. And I put half the case of bottles in there at one time. We want to make sure that the bottles are both ice cold and wet with Star San so that we don't increase the foaming. So any temperature change from where the beer is in the keg will cause some foaming. And also a dry bottle will present more nucleation points to the beer and cause some additional CO2 to crack out. So having some of the rough surface of the glass actually filled with Star San or any liquid, but we're trying to stay sanitary here, that will fill in those little micro pits and cause less CO2 to crack out a solution. I've got my purging gas hooked to the beer gun right here, and I have that as a separate pressure, whether you have a 2 pressure regulator or a separate rig set up that you can lower the pressure. I run this at about 2 to 3 psi. You can barely hear it coming out. It's not under high pressure. I feel like there's less turbulence in the bottle with lower pressure. But if you only have a single pressure, run that at the pressure that your beer is at and split it off to do the purging. It's just the lesser of two evils to run it at the higher pressure. So just kind of dump these out. Okay, so I'm staging 4 here. Now, this is the process, okay? It's a little bit hectic. I have the beer hooked up to the right keg, and I'm going to dispense all the foamy beer out right there. Then I'm going to pour myself a beer, just a little bit. Make sure that there's not that much star sand in here. Go in here, break up any bubbles. Now purge. Got gas going in. About 30 to 40 seconds at this low pressure. In the meantime, I'm going to grab a cap right here. Quick dip. And then I put it in the magnetic holder, and now I start filling. So that beer is filling very controlled into the bottle. Okay, it's about half full. I want to make sure the next bottle is ready on deck. Okay, as it's coming up the neck, I start raising the tube. Okay. Go in here and start purging. See how that foam is coming up? That's ready to cap because the foam is right at the top. Forgot to put a damp towel down underneath the tray. It's kind of hard to do it one-handed. Okay, so this capper is good enough with a single crimp, but if you want to get really crazy, just turn it, crimp it 3 times. If you have a cheap capper, that's kind of like standard procedure. Okay. Purge. While you're purging, you're going to dip a cap. Just going to grab a little bit of star sand right there so I don't have to keep worrying about dipping. Okay, that's enough purging. Filling now. While it's filling, make sure that there's no more star sand in this one. We have our cap in there. Okay, it's almost at the neck. Okay, start coming up. Okay, foam at the top. Go in here and start purging. All right, foam there. Get that set up. Crimp that. Put it in the box. Okay, that's enough purging. Start filling. Cap. Dip it in some star sand in the capper. The reason we don't soak those is because the oxygen absorption layer underneath the cap is activated by getting wet, so you don't want to activate it too quickly. Okay, it's coming up. Start raising it. Okay. Start purging. Let that foam kind of rise up a little bit. This is called capping on foam, and it's basically it's liquid all the way up to about 3/4 from the cap, and then the rest of that should be filled with foam. That's really what we're trying to achieve. Sometimes we're better than other times. I'll start filling. Get my cap, dip. Now I'm intentionally not going to grab another bottle out yet. I want to show you what happens if you have to pause for a bit. Okay, we're right about at the top of the shoulder there. We're going to start rising up so that we don't displace so much. Want to withdraw. Make sure you've got foam. Let's see how foam kind of oozes out. That's like ideal right there, where when you crimp this down, that foam is going to drip down the bottle. Okay, that's exactly what you want to see. All right, so, okay, oops, I didn't have another bottle on deck, but I do want to have one. So if I have to stop filling, this is the procedure. Dip the beer gun into your Star San so that it gets re-chilled down, and go ahead and grab the bottle that you meant to fill on the last of that beer. By the way, it's also good to have an extra bottle if you don't get perfect fills. I'm going to show you how to evaluate the bottles for fill levels afterwards. Okay, this has now been sitting around a little bit. I think some of the beer may have foamed out some CO2. Since it's the same beer, I don't go to the dump bucket, but I do go to the pint glass and give myself a little bit of beer and position myself so that I'm ready to start purging the bottle. So dispense a bit. Okay, it's running clear. I don't see any bubbles in the line. Get that in here and start purging. Just going to real quick make sure that Star San is out. Okay. Dip a cap. This tray will move around a lot less if you have a damp towel down. So when I change over to the other beer, I'm going to put a couple of paper towels down and make sure they're a little bit damp with Star San. Okay, start filling. This beer is carved at about 11 psi at 36 degrees. Generally, I like to chill the beer down a little colder than I like to drink it, and also about a psi higher than I usually like for serving. And that's to just compensate for any carbonation that you may lose in the process. Okay, that's a perfect fill with foam right at the top. Get that crimp. Okay, another great fill on that one. All right, and drop the beer gun into the Star San to do the changeover. And one of the things I really like to do, because I don't want to write all over my bottles, if I were only filling 4, I'd leave them in rows like this, but since I'm filling 5, I'm going to go in this direction. And I'll do lines like this to indicate that I'm going in rows in this direction, and write down what the beer is. Okay, it's right here. Start lifting. Follow it all the way up. Perfect foam right to the top. Crimp in the box. And you just try to get into this rhythm. Two-handed is very nice on this bench capper, so you can kind of stabilize the bottle and all that, but it is doable where you're multitasking, and I really do enjoy sort of just the systematic approach. I like that I can get these done in relatively quick time. So I got 2 beers done. Been doing this, well, with all the setup and everything, I'm probably a half hour into it, but I could basically get 5 bottles or 6 bottles of each beer done in probably 15 minutes and enjoy a couple of sips of beer. I think you get the hang of what we're doing here. Again, you want to make sure that you label what you're doing on the box, and then later when you print your competition entry labels, you know which bottles to pick from. Oh, I was talking about how to evaluate which bottles, if you bottle some extras, how do you figure out which one should go into the competition? I want to take a bottle and tip it up and look for bubbles rising up. See, there's some bubbles there. I want a small CO2 bubble to be able to be inside here to account for some expansion if these warm up. They will warm up when they're doing the bottle sort at the competition. So if this is 100% liquid, when it warms up, the bottle could rupture and spill the beer all over the place. And it's not only it's embarrassing for you, but you lose your entry. But you don't want to see a gigantic bubble either. That means that there's potentially some oxygen mixed in. So you want a little bubble, but you want some kind of bubble. Otherwise, it's all liquid and you risk losing that entry. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, if I missed anything, this is pretty much how it works. And just keep going through and using different bottles. All right, cool. Have a good one.